Hello everyone. I am Chrisallyn Bañez from the University of Rizal System Morong, currently taking Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English. And I am from 1E. For today, we are going to learn about the belief or perspective of Immanuel Kant about the self. Who is Immanuel Kant? Let's take a look at his photos. These are the photos of Immanuel Kant. Are you familiar with him already? If not, then you'll get to know him more as we discuss further. Let's now move forward to his life and works. Immanuel Kant lived all his life in the town of Königsberg in East Prussia, presently Western Russia. And although he stayed away from the church, Kant was deeply spiritual. According to research, Kant's parents were very modest. His father was a saddle maker. Kant never had much money, a fact he dealt with cheerfully by living modestly. It wasn't until he was in his 50s that he became a fully salaried professor and attained a degree of prosperity. His family were deeply religious and very strict. Later in life, Kant did not have any conventional religious beliefs, but he was acutely aware of just how much religion had contributed to his parents' ability to cope with the hardships of their existence, and how useful religion could be in fostering social cohesion and community. Furthermore, his studies in ancient philosophies had a strong influence on him, but it was the French philosopher Rousseau that made him realize and enabled him to formulate his philosophical ideas. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a Genovan-born political and moral philosopher of the Enlightenment era. He is well known for his work of Social Contract, which questioned the purpose and place of government and its responsibility to its citizens. In addition, Jean-Jacques Rousseau believed that nature is master. Children acknowledge this truth, perhaps better than most adults. Nature gives life to humanity and provides humans with the tools necessary to survive. Though initially content with teaching, Kant stated that it was the philosophy of David Hume that awakened and motivated him to be the founder of German idealism. Hume's conception of the self has proven to be influential and can be characterized using the following passage. According to Hume, the mind is nothing but a bundle or collection of different perceptions, which succeeded each other with an inconceivable rapidity, and are in a perpetual flux and movement. The mind is a kind of theater, where several perceptions successively make their appearance, pass, repass, glide away, and mingle in an infinite variety of postures and situations. Meanwhile, what is German idealism? German idealism is a philosophical movement that emerged in Germany in the 18th and early 19th centuries. It developed out of the work of Immanuel Kant in the 1780s and 1790s, and was closely linked both with Romanticism and the revolutionary politics of enlightenment. Kant came up with the most remarkable philosophical system of the modern times. He wrote 3 books: The Critic of Pure Reason, Critic of Practical Reason, and Critic of Judgment. Immanuel Kant's 3 critics are among the pinnacles of Western philosophy. This accessible study grounds Kant's philosophical position in the context of his intellectual influences, most notably against the background of the skepticism and empiricism of David Hume. It is an ideal critical introduction to Kant's views in the key areas of knowledge and metaphysics, morality and freedom, and beauty and design. Now let's talk about rationalism and empiricism. Rationalism and empiricism are both terms used in philosophy. We often heard it. Both the terms are used under the term epistemology, which is the branch of philosophy concerned with knowledge. Although the terms sound the same, they are too different from each other. The main difference between rationalism and empiricism is that rationalism is the knowledge that is derived from reason and logic, while on the other hand, empiricism is the knowledge that is derived from experience and experimentation. Rationalism is about intuition, while empiricism is about visual concepts. Moreover, rationalists believe that logic and reasons can reveal the reality of the world, that some truths exist which can be grasped directly through the intellect. Rationalism can be seen in logical reasoning, mathematics, morals, and ethics, and also metaphysics. On the other hand, empiricism is the term in philosophy which states that experimentation and sensory experience is the major source of knowledge. Rather than ideas, empiricism emphasized the pieces of evidence and experiments to show the reality of the world according to empiricism. Again, rationalism, reason rather than experience, is the foundation of all knowledge. From the empiricism, knowledge is only attained through the senses. Next, let's talk about Kant's views of the mind. Contrary to what the empiricists believed, Kant argued that the mind is not just a passive receiver of sense experience, but rather actively participates in knowing the objects it experiences. According to Kant, our minds actively sort, organize, relate, and synthesize the fragmented, fluctuating collection of sense data that our sense organs take in. What are those? Seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, or anything else that we can experience through our organs or our sensory organs. For example, imagine that someone dumped a pile of puzzle pieces on the table in front of you. They would initially appear to be a random collection of items unrelated to one another and containing no meaning for you, much like the basic sensations of immediate and reflective experience. However, as you began to assemble the pieces, these fragmentary items would gradually begin to form a coherent image that would have significance for you. Kant explained that this meaning constructing activity is precisely what our minds are doing all of the time, taking the raw data of experience and actively synthesizing it into the familiar, orderly, meaningful world in which we live. As you might imagine, this mental process is astonishing in its power and complexity, and it is going on all of the time. In addition, Kant stated that instead of the mind conforming to the world, it is the external world that conforms to the mind. What does it mean? Let's relate it to what Hume said. According to Hume, our minds conform to the world of which we are merely passive observers. However, Kant asserted that this is a wrong-headed perspective. Our minds actively synthesize and relate these sensations in the process of creating an intelligible world. As a result, the sensations of immediate experience conform to our minds rather than the reverse. We construct our world through these conceptual operations, and as a result, this is a world of which we can gain insight and knowledge. Also, instead of disregarding the philosophies of rationalism and empiricism, seeing that both are valid but lacking, he combined them and defined knowledge as a result of human understanding applied to sense experience. Let's now proceed to Kant's view of human nature and the self. Kant held that those bundles of sensory impressions, as seen by Hume, imply a unity of the self without which there would be no knowledge of experience. When the self sees an object, it tends to remember its characteristics and applies on it the forms of time and space. The unity of consciousness is a phrase invented by Kant to describe the fact that thoughts and perceptions of any given mind are bound together in a unity by being all contained in one consciousness, my consciousness. That's precisely what makes your world intelligible to you. It's yourself that is actively organizing all of your sensations and thoughts into a picture that makes sense to you. This picture is uniquely your picture. You are at the center of your world and you view everything in the world from your perspective. For example, think about a time in which you shared an experience with someone, but each of you had radically different experiences. Attending a party, watching a movie, having a communication misunderstanding. Reflect on the way each person is instinctively describes the entire situation from his or her perspective. That's the unity of consciousness that Kant is describing. Therefore, a self must exist according to Kant, or there could be no memory or knowledge. The term he used for this experience of the self and its unity with objects is transcendental apperception. Yourself is able to perform this synthesizing, unifying function because it transcends sense experience. Yourself isn't an object located in your consciousness with other objects. Yourself is a subject, an organizing principle that makes a unified and intelligible experience possible. Kant explained that transcendental is used because people do not experience the self directly, but as a unity of all impressions that are organized by the mind through perceptions. Then, Kant concluded that all objects of knowledge, which includes the self, are phenomenal, that the true nature of things is altogether unknown and unknowable. It is metaphorically above or behind sense experience, and it uses the categories of your mind to filter, order, relate, organize, and synthesize sensations into a unified whole. That's why Kant accords the self transcendental status. It exists independently of experience. The self is the product of reason, a regulative principle because the self regulates experience by making unified experience possible. Other such transcendental regulative ideas include the ideas of cosmos and God. Lastly, in the Mother of God, Kant stated the kingdom of God is within man. God is manifested in people's lives, therefore, it is man's duty to move towards perfection. Kant emphasized that people should always see duty as a drive command. To conclude, Kant begins his analysis at Hume's starting point, right? Examining immediate sense experience. And he acknowledges Hume's point that all knowledge of the world begins with sensations, sounds, shapes, colors, taste, feels, smells. For Hume, these sensations are the basic data of experience, and they flow through our consciousness in a torrential rushing stream. But, in reflecting on his experience, Kant observes an obvious fact that Hume seems to have overlooked, namely that our primary experience of the world is not in terms of a disconnected stream of sensations. Instead, we perceive and experience an organized world of objects, relationships, and ideas all existing within a fairly stable framework of space and time.